Halo Episode 2, titled Unbound, dropped last night, and it was a much slower episode than the previous one. There was practically zero action in this one, which might disappoint a few of you. Before we dive into the recap, I'll be adding a small chapter so you can skip ahead to the review section if that's what you want to do. Right, onto the recap. We open up with a flashback to the Master Chief 22 years ago in camp, as he goes to escape the military with a fellow Spartan, Soren. We see here that the treatment that these Spartans undergo can have some adverse side effects to say the least, as we can see with Soren's hand. It was an interesting scene which added a bit more depth. It might have made more sense to have this in the premiere somehow, but obviously it's here to set up a new character who we're going to be seeing a lot in this episode and maybe more in future. Anyway, fast forward 22 years, Chief along with Quan come out of, well, I'm just going to call it hyperspace. We get a cool little bit of asteroid dodging, and I have to say the episode's space scenes and styles are very reminiscent of Battlestar Galactica, with the sound design and the crash camera zooms. I do quite enjoy the VFX of the space scenes, that's for sure. We get a cool new location, which I don't remember the name of, and after an awkward show of strength from Chief, I mean, he could have just sidestepped the thing, but I guess he had to show he means business. We meet Soren again. Fast forward through some cool visuals, and for those of you afraid of heights, I would assume this is what hell looks like. Soren now lives in a literal rock with a family which is barely explained. I'm sure we'll find out more later. Chief questions him about how this is even possible, and we're introduced to the concept of a device in Master Chief that is designed to numb his emotions and allow him to better focus in battle, but also deducts from enjoying the finer things in life, like food, and I assume other pleasure. Soren takes Chief to some previous alien abductees to see if they can unlock the secrets of the artifact, or if they know anything about it. In the end, the crazed man just forces the object in Chief's hand, and we get another light show. Anyway, the best thing about this storyline is that we get to dump Quan at the asteroid, and Chief returns to the military. This alleviated my fears that it was just going to be 8 to 9 episodes of Chief on the run with Quan. However, we replaced those fears with what I imagine is going to be Quan teaming up with Soren to try and take back Madrigal from Burn Gorman's finisher, who's been cleaning up shop of any leftovers of Quan's clan, for want of a better word. In the Dr. Halsey scenes, which I thought were the most interesting, we get to see the aftermath of Chief's escape and her trying to get the military council to agree to utilize an AI to up the potential of the Spartans and potentially take control of them. Apparently this is an idea that had some pushback due to flash cloning. What's flash cloning, you say? Well, back in the novels they made clones of the Spartans and replaced the real versions of the children taken from the Spartan program, so practically kidnapping and switching bodies around. The clones would usually die within a year as the cloning process is unstable, and while Halsey is going to, or has already done so, and cloned her brain or her mind for an AI creation. Finally, we have a couple of Covenant scenes where I'm still not fully sure what's happening. Is the human a clone and being inhabited by an alien? Or is it a human that's working for the Covenant? We're getting some information from the alien who managed to escape the Spartans in episode 1, and that the Covenant are looking for the Halo ring. There's some dialogue about the woman learning things from the alien leader, but I'm still not sure what's happening other than they'll be sending her to the humans to infiltrate and hopefully get closer to the mysterious object. Anyway, that's the recap. Onto review. Overall, it was a different pace for the episode, a lot less action, which might turn people off, but I'm okay if we're going to establish things more. It did feel incredibly rushed though, as we're back to home base by the end of the episode. I think we could do with the establishment of some actual stakes. Are the human race at war with the Covenant? What are the actual danger levels at the moment? There doesn't seem to be much danger. Is it more of a stealth war going on rather than an all-out one? The previous episodes makes it sound like people thought the Covenant were made up by the UNSC, so people are aware of them, but it doesn't feel like an actual threat for the most part. The show itself needs a lot more clarity and some more forward momentum. This really just felt like an episode where we needed to get some characters to a specific place, and probably should have been mashed together with the pilot to form a feature-length episode rather than being awkwardly split like this, where the pace was much slower than episode 1. There were some positives though. I enjoyed the intro scene set 22 years ago. However, it would have been more dramatic if we actually shot Soren, which would have elevated the stakes, with change in him sparing Quan. Obviously they couldn't do that because they need Soren for something else, but it would have been more interesting concept and solidified Master Chief as a soldier who follows orders. At the moment, we hear more about how he's a good soldier who will follow orders if they are horrendous, but we haven't actually seen that due to the nature of the first episode showing him developing a bit more of a conscience. I'm also not sold at all with the Chosen One narrative of the Chief. We really didn't need that at all. And introducing us to the crazed alien abductees felt superfluous. It doesn't work in anyone else's hands but the Chief. Something we established earlier on in the episode. Yes, this is a bit more world building, showing we have humans who have been abducted and escaped and end up a little crazy, but the point of meeting them, well, yeah, we kind of received that information already. Maybe that'll play a bigger role later on in the season, but I actually think they're done. Who knows? Overall, I think the VFX and the score were standouts for this episode. I really liked the blending of the game theme into a couple of scenes, and the VFX were great for the most part, but emphasized how cheap the actual sets looked when we see them. It's an odd thing where the show looks really good and then we get to the sets and maybe it's the lighting or the cinematography or the production design, it just doesn't gel or look great. It's an expensive show and it doesn't look like it, is what I'm saying. Hopefully after a rocky start, we will find its stride in episode 3 and it will give us something more familiar, as the Chief's back with the Spartans and Dr. Halsey, and hopefully we get more of that, rather than possibly Quan going on a side mission to avenge her family and retake Madrigal. I hope we don't go that way.